Hello, I'm Dave March, the Spy Guy, and I'm starting up my stream for the second time here. I just wanted to come online. I was reading some stuff on Ricochet, and it was a website I belong to, and reading some of the stuff, and I'm just like ruminating over some of the stuff that happened today. And normally I try to schedule this in advance and let people know it's happening, but I just wanted to get out and going and talking about some of the stuff that I've seen and hear about. So one of the things is a friend of mine who's also a subscriber to the channel, Brian's, who sometimes comes into the comment fields. He had a post on Ricochet and he was talking about how he wants to end the war in Ukraine because it's literally threatening the United States' national security because they're facing shell shortages. They're facing all these problems with the fact that it will take literally years for the United States Army and Air Force and defense industry to replenish what they've used already in Ukraine. Because, as I've said in previous videos, we just never thought a modern conflict would last this long, and yet here we are saying the United States sending off tanks, and their allies are now trying to send light tanks. This stuff will not work in the hands of the Ukraine. It will take them a year to learn how to maintain and drive a tank, just like it does. And the entire time, I'm sure you've heard it somewhere else better said before, but I really don't want to get down to the tank discussion right now. I wanted to talk about something. Why Russia invaded Ukraine? There's a whole bunch of different ones, but one of the ones for me is in we normally have 30 minutes flight time for nuclear missiles. So when I was a kid, I have never watched The Day After, but I did watch another one called By Dawn's Early Light, and it was an HBO movie. You can find it on YouTube. It's available. Powers Booth is in it. But the movie has like one really creepy scene I've seen in it a bunch of times where, ironically, what looks like a missile gets launched out of Turkey and hits Donetsk Republic in Russia. So this is a movie about a limited nuclear exchange. So what happens is the president, played by Martin Landau, this missile goes off. You could hear people screaming in the background at NATO headquarters as they watch this nuclear missile that looks like it flew out of Turkey and hits in the Soviet Union. So all these people are freaking out. All this stuff is going on. Suddenly, the president of the United States is sitting there, and he gets a phone call from NORAD National at Cheyenne Mountain saying, "Oh, by the way, Mr. President, in 30 minutes, nuclear missiles are going to be hitting the United States." And he's like, "Holy crap. What do you mean nuclear missiles?" He's just woken up in the sleep. You have no idea why the president of the United States is not in bed. He's just sleeping in the chair. But he wakes up and he gets this. And the first thing he goes, "I got to get in contact with the Soviets to figure what's going on." So he gets on hold with the Soviets. And the Soviets said, "Look, it looks like hardliners in our country faked a missile launch from Turkey, hit some of their things. We did a limited tactical strike against you. We're calling back our bombers now, but the missiles, certain missiles are on the way. And you got one of three choices, Mr. President. You can either hit us with you could take it and realize we'll do our best to help rebuild you. You can launch a limited proportional nuclear strike against us. And that'll be, and we'll take it. We understand the cause, but we're willing to do this. I mean, this is a great screw up. You're going to lose 10 million dead, or sorry, you're going to lose 3 million. You could do 3 million to us, or 3, you can go total nuclear annihilation, but we'll response. You have 30 minutes to make this decision. Now, as it currently stands, because we have the capability, NATO put defensive missiles inside Poland. Putin only has 20 minutes if he gets that phone call. And that's a pretty thing to think about. I would like 30 minutes. I would like all the missiles back. I mean, we have them in submarines. We don't need all these nuclear missiles. That's certainly not good. I believe that we could actually get to a point where we could have the two or three big powers having 1,000 missiles each, and then the smaller powers having maybe 100. And that would be more than enough to just do incalculable damage to the world. But you got this situation. That's what's going to happen. So what happens if Ukraine joins NATO? and this is something that no one seems to be understanding. The reason why the Russians had to invade and get this stuff and to prevent them from joining is that timeline where Martin Landau, as the president, has 30 minutes to make a decision whether to destroy the world or not. If we put missiles in Ukraine, it'll be 3 minutes. And if the Russians only have 3 minutes to make a decision, you know what's going to happen? They're going to decide to automate their defenses. And when they automate their nuclear response, that means a freaking bird can fly past one of their radars and accidentally set off the nuclear strike. Right now, we have people who have to interpret whether or not this bird or flock of birds as an oncoming missile or that. And we've gone, this has happened in the Soviet era times where that was happening. And we want to put missiles in Ukraine so the Russians will only have 3 minutes to make a decision. I got a word for that, guys. That's called Skynet. Our idiot missile industrial complex people are so stupid to think that they can win a first strike on nuclear strike. Yes, that's what they believe. Some of them believe that. Some of them just think they're just going to make a bunch of money. It's like freaking WorldCom, where you just have to keep adding countries so they can sell them more weapons. That's another situation going on. Why NATO keeps expanding is they just new markets for new. You have to replace all your Soviet era stuff or all your own domestic stuff with NATO stuff so you can be compatible. Well, I don't care if it's compatible or not. I care the fact that we have this problem with nuclear weapons. You want to put nuclear missiles in Ukraine so they can have 3 minutes. The Russians can have 3 minutes, and Putin or whoever is going to be there. And there's 3 guys right now, actually, in Russia that have footballs. It's Putin's got 1 nuclear football. The general, the chief of the command staff, and the minister of defense each have a separate nuclear football. The Russians are a little paranoid in some ways, and in other ways, they're like, okay, so maybe, and that's just the ones that we know about, right? But that's why we have to have these kind of conversation, is that these people don't understand. They want to put nuclear weapons there so they can cut down the decision-making decisions, and that will mean that the Russians will automate their missile defenses, create Skynet, and the world will end one day because a computer decides it. And I'm not comfortable with that. I think that's really stupid. But they're not asking me. So I come on here and complain about this stuff. Okay, and we see that we have a bunch of tanks going to Ukraine to fight the Russians. Do you know the Ukrainians started with like 2,100 tanks? Where did all those go? I thought they were winning. If they're winning, why do they need 200 tanks? Well, you know why. Because they're not winning. They're losing. They're a bunch of losers. When I, in a war game, attack another guy's country and I take 20% of his stuff and add it to my country, we have this thing called, and I create a condition we call winning. And the guy who loses his 20% of this country is what we call a loser. I know this is hard for Americans to understand because Americans haven't won a war in 50 years and they think that's for crying out loud. The Russians are winning. Get your head out of your ass. Okay, what else I was going to say? So I watched the Project Veritas video. If you guys go out there, apparently you can find it on Twitter now. They do have their account. And of course, we now have some crazy guy at Pfizer going around complaining, saying we're not doing gain of function research. We're just doing directed research. And it's different because we changed the label, like we're Dr. Fauci or something. So yeah, it turns out Pfizer may well be doing research on COVID in-house. Fun times. I'm watching that video. I'm like, they need to send federal marshals down here to take care of these people. Well, we'll see how that one goes. What else has we said here? Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out. So I know the last one here is I was looking at David Rubin's latest Twitter thread. It's, as I have said a number of times on Twitter, the uh, the problem is that whoever they designed Twitter, it's not even I don't know if it's like bombs. I was kept comparing it to landmines in Cambodia, where they're still blowing up people's feet 30 years since the freaking war. And now we have in Twitter is they have their the people over engineered this thing because a lot of people have been complaining about their getting engagements going down, and it just seems like I said several times, it's going to take a year for Musk at least, possibly more, to just get it all to be properly working. And they're just like, every time they think they figured out one thing, 100 other things explode, and it goes all over the place. And I'm reminded of the company I work for. I'm not going into too much details, but they were explaining the same situation. Every time they bring on a new account, they're constantly tweaking the system, and then because the system's been built up over so many times, over so many other things, they that some account from 5 years ago, they changed the rule here, and that account explodes because the rule over there is touching, because we're all on the same system. And so here we have, like, you might make a change here, and you might end up blowing up some other thing from 5 years ago because you're only concerned about today. And that seems to be a lot of the problems happening at Twitter, is that they're constantly finding like new they're not necessarily trying to throttle you or do anything bad, but so many people patchwork built up over time in the system, and they're just like they make a change, and suddenly another 100 dominoes fall, and they're like, Jesus, we just picked up put the other 100 dominoes over there, now these dominoes over here are falling. Anyways, my last video, I did post that a little early, and I did get some great engagement out of it. And it just seemed like maybe people wanted to hear more shorter stuff. So I didn't have much more to say, but I was just like watching, you know what? Maybe I can use this thing for good instead of evil. Sorry. Let me pull something up here, because I was like arguing with people on Ricochet, and I was like, I gotta come here and talk to you about what I'm. Oh my God, they have freaking Dan Crenshaw on tomorrow on the main podcast. That's going to be dumb. What was it? Patch McCain's going to be online on this thing, and I get to work from home. I can actually go in and yell at them if I want. Okay, here we go. So here's some of the comments here. I won't say who it is, but basically, yeah. I agree we shouldn't compromise our readiness. Lead time shouldn't be as long as reported, and that's a failing on our military planning. No, it's not a failure on your military planning. It's a feature of the military planning. We need to be able to rapidly replenish our munitions and weapon system. That hasn't been a priority for far too long. And yeah, it'll take years, but that's part of the thing. They don't want the Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and all these people. They want long lead time. They have made this system into place. What we actually need to do is do what the Russians do on a regular basis, which is have a large industrial factory base, and you can ratchet it up and tool it down. But when you tool it down, you're understanding that basically you're going to have a lot of idle manufacturing base that cannot be repurposed for anything else. So it does cause some inefficiency in the system, but I mean, it's the military. I don't mind inefficiency if we get our stuff on time. We are told that China is watching. And yes, they are. And that if Putin wins, they are more likely to strike Taiwan. Not really. The Chinese don't want to attack Taiwan because they know, for one thing, it'll be a bloodbath. Like, people do not understand that the most complicated military operation in the history of mankind is the Normandy invasion, in which it took months of planning, all this work, and to do that, to get guys from a 20 mile across a 60 mile, what is it, over the North Sea, which is to the beaches in Normandy. versus the Taiwanese beaches don't look nice. They're heavily fortified. They're narrow. The Chinese have to basically sail around all of Taiwan, where they'll be having shot at by Taiwanese defenses, and land on the west and southwest corner beaches. They got to go through like a gauntlet of stuff to get there. They don't have the Chinese defense system is not designed to actually invade Taiwan, despite the People's Liberation Navy planning this for 60 years. It's just tough of a nut to crack. Now, they have said they will do it if they think we're going to recognize Taiwan's independence. That's their red line. Well, as long as we don't do that, and personally, that will require a government input power to try and do it. And if the word comes down, I was talking to people at Tom Luongo's thing, and I said, if that's going to happen, I'm pretty sure the Kuomintang, who still has access to probably large portions of the Taiwanese military, would overthrow the government and basically force everyone to back down. There would probably be a coup d'etat by the local Kuomintang because they're not crazy enough to do that. Also, does China really want to find out whether or not Taiwan has those 25 tactical nuclear weapons strapped to F-15s that people keep telling me are there? No one seems to ever think about that one. Yes, and how do I know that? With that, I have a few contacts within American parts of the national state that really think that this happened, that the Pakistanis sold in the 90s, sold a bunch of tactical nukes to Taiwan. Like they were going out of style. And there's certainly enough evidence that we think the Saudis and a few other countries already are sitting on nuclear stockpiles that no one wants to talk about. And you won't hear, that is something I guess I could tell you that you won't hear anywhere else. Like no one else, too many of the people I know just don't, in the independent space, don't hear these things because I guess they're in the independent space. I have people who are still connected and they tell me things and I'm like, okay. Let's see if that. So maybe it might just be a rumor that's out there. One of those things. Well, kind of like the early when the British formed up MI5 and MI6, everyone just assumed that the Foreign Office had a bunch of intelligence agencies activities going on when no one was really doing that much. Yeah, I won't get into the rest of that one thread there. What should France have done in 1939? I get that we're wildly depleting our stocks and we'll probably suffer for it. They're spending everything we have in reserve in every way they can think of. Security, you name it. The goal would they lie about mostly to themselves for all of us to suffer, die. Yeah, if France had invaded unprotected Germany in 1939, yeah, certainly the French had done that. It's weird. So on the eve of war, the two most experienced and considered best generals in the World War II for the Allies, one is a guy called Weygand, and the other guy is Wavell, both W's. Weygand is considered was General Foch's deputy commander in World War One. He's considered the most aggressive, best officer they have, and he's sent to Syria to keep an eye on the colonies. And the same thing happens with Wavell, who's considered one of the most brilliant planners, and he's sent to Egypt because these were key colonies. But if those two had been commanding in France in 1939, they probably would have, certainly Weygand would have invaded into southern Germany. He would not have let the minefield stop him there. And we now know from declassified documents that Germany only had left 4 days of ammunition there to defend there because they were taking a huge gamble. That would have forced them to, they probably still would have conquered Poland, but not right away. And they would have forced them to redeploy troops immediately to the west to prevent the French from doing stuff. Yeah. Someone's saying domino fallacy, right? And there's going to be a lot of people talking about what should have been done with 39. Anyways, guys, that was kind of it. I just wanted to come on, give a quick update. I had people were wrong on the internet, and I wanted to complain to someone. Let me see where this thing is. So, hope you like what you saw. Want to see more? Like, share, subscribe, comment. It all helps drive some engagement. And if you want, you can follow me on Locals and just talk to me there. I always try to keep an eye on things on Locals. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye bye.